Hello students, greetings of the day. Hope you all are fine at home. Yes, yes, good. So today also we are going to continue our second unit, that is from trade to territory. So in our previous videos we had saw about the establishment of political power by the English East India Company. Okay, then we had also saw about the three Carnatic wars and the four Anglo-Mysore wars. Okay. So then we had also see about the Anglo-Maratha wars and the first Anglo-Maratha war, second Anglo-Maratha war and third Anglo-Maratha war. Then also about the British administrative organization in India. Okay. So the British Indian administration was run by four political institutions. Already you had know that. Okay. So what are the four main principal institutions? They are civil services, army, police and judiciary. Okay. So in our last video we had saw about the civil services and also about the army. Okay. So in today's class we are going to learn about the police and the judiciary system of administration organization by the British. Okay. So police. So when the East India Company took over the Diwani in 1765, the Mughal police system was under the control of Faujadas, who were in charge of their sarkars or rural district. The kotwals were in charge of towns, while the village watchmen were paid and controlled by the zamindars. So the East India Company, they had took over the Diwani in the year 1765, and in that time the Mughal police system was fully under the control of the Faujadars. Okay, so these Faujadars are the persons who were in charge of their sarkars or their rural districts. So here the kotwals were in charge of the towns, then the village watchmen were paid and controlled by the zamindars. So the police system was created by Lord Cornwallis. He relieved the zamindars from the police functions and established a regular police force in 1791. Cornwallis established a system of circles or thanas, each headed by a daroga. So in the Mughal system, the police duty, it was controlled by the zamindars. The zamindars, they paid the village watchman for their services. So after that, Cornwallis, what he did means, he introduced the police system in a new, by his new idea. Okay, so he relieved the zamindars from their police functions, and Cornwallis, he established a regular police force in the year 1791. So Cornwallis established a system of circles or thanas. So that system of circles is known as thanas, and each thana is headed by a daroga. So the authority of the daroga extended to village watchmen who performed the police duties in the villages. Okay. So who has the authority of the daroga? The authority was given to the village watchman. This village watchman only performed the police duties in the villages. So that authority of the daroga was given to the village watchman. Then the hereditary village police became the chowkidars. So the heredity means, that is first his grandfather, after that his father, then next son, then grandson, like that. Hereditary the post was given to the single family. Okay. So the hereditary village policemen became the chowkidars. So in the big cities, the old office of kotwals was, however, continued. The daroga system was extended to Madras in 1802. Okay. So here the daroga was appointed to each of on the wards of the city. This daroga system was appointed in all the cities. This daroga system was extended to the Madras in the year 1802. Okay. So before the post of district superintendent of police was created, all the thanas were under the general supervision of the district judge. In 1808, a superintendent of police was appointed for each division. Later, the district collector was entrusted with the task of controlling the police force in the districts. The main task of the police was to handle crime and to prevent conspiracy against the British rule. Okay. So before the posting, that is the superintendent of police, this before creating that post, the thanas were under the control of the general supervision of the district judge. Okay. Then in 1801 only a post called superintendent of police was created. So for each division a superintendent of police was appointed. Then later the district collector was given the task to control the police force for the particular districts. Okay. So the main task of this police was to handle the crime and to prevent the conspiracy against the British. So do you know what is meant by conspiracy? Conspiracy means that is the activities against the British rule. Okay. So the main task of the police was to handle crime and to prevent the activities which was taken by the people against the British rule. Okay. Next one, judicial system. In 1772, the dual government was abolished and the company took over direct responsibility for the collection of revenue as well as the administration of judice. Do you know what is meant by dual government? Dual government means two government, that is the government which is run by the British and by the Indian rulers. Okay. So in 1772, the dual system was abolished and the company, they took over the direct responsibility to collect the taxes. Revenue means taxes. Okay. So to collect the revenue as well as the administration of justice. Okay. So consequently a Diwani adult and Faujdari adult was established. By the Regulating Act of 1773, a Supreme Court was set up in Calcutta. So when was the Supreme Court was set up? So under the Regulating Act was of 1773, a Supreme Court was set up at Calcutta. So this court consisted of a Chief Justice and 3 Paishni judges who were appointed by the Crown. Crown means that is under the British Crown, directly by the British Crown. This court decided civil, criminal and ecclesiastical and the admiralty cases. So this Supreme Court which was established at Calcutta, this court will decide the civil, criminal, ecclesiastical. Do you know what is mean by ecclesiastical? Ecclesiastical means that is the cases which are relating to the Christian church. Okay. So ecclesiastical and also the administration cases were handed over by this Supreme Court. So on the model of the Supreme Court of Calcutta, a Supreme Court was established in Madras in 1801 and in Bombay in 1823. Okay. So firstly the Supreme Court was set up at Calcutta. Then after that another Supreme Court was established in Madras in 1801 and Bombay in 1823. In 1832, William Bentinck started jury system in Bengal. A Indian Law Commission was established to compile the laws. A rule of law was established for the whole empire. So after that in 1832, Lord William Bentinck, he started the jury system in Bengal. So after that a Indian Law Commission was established. Okay, so for what purpose this Indian Law Commission was established? It is to compile. Compile means to make over the laws. A rule of law was established for the whole empire. So according to the Indian High Court Act 1861, 3 high courts were set up in Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. So in place of the old Supreme Courts. Okay. So according to the Indian High Court of 1861, 3 high courts were set up. Okay. So from in which places? In Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. Okay. So you see here, Sir Elijah Impey was the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at Fort William in Bengal. Sir Elijah Impey, he was the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court which was located in Fort William in Bengal. Okay. Then Sir Thiruvarur Muthuswamy was the first Indian Chief Justice of the Madras High Court. So who was the first Indian Chief Justice of the Madras High Court? Sir Thiruvarur Muthuswamy. Okay. So these are the administrative principles of the British. So totally there are 4 administrative principal institutions are there. They are civil services, army, police and judiciary. Okay. So now let us see about the different policies of the British. Okay, so the first one is the subsidiary alliance. Lord Wellesley introduced the system subsidiary alliance to bring the princely states under the control of the British. Okay, so who introduced this subsidiary system? Lord Wellesley. Okay, so Lord Wellesley, he introduced a new system called subsidiary alliance to bring the princely Indian states under the control of the British. It was the most effective instrument for the expansion of the British territory and political influence in India. The princely state was called the protected state and the British came to refer as a paramount power. It was the duty of the British to safeguard the state from external aggression and to help its ruler in maintaining internal peace. Okay, so according to the policy of subsidiary alliance, the princely states were under the control of the British. So this princely state was called as the protected state. That means this states was protected by the British. Okay, so it was the duty of the British to protect and safeguard this princely state when any external aggression from the external aggression, and the British has to help the ruler to maintain internal peace. Okay, so this is the policy of subsidiary alliance. So now let us see about the main features of the subsidiary alliance. So what are the main features of the subsidiary alliance? First one, an Indian ruler entering into an alliance with the British had to dissolve his own armed forces and accept the British forces. That is, any Indian ruler who entering into an alliance, okay, that is an agreement with the British, that is to accept the subsidiary alliance. Okay, so any Indian ruler, an Indian ruler who enter into the alliance with the British, that ruler had to dissolve his own army and that ruler has to accept the British forces in his state. Okay, so the next one is a British resident would stay in his capital. Okay, a British resident mean would has to stay in his capital, stay in that particular state. Okay, then towards the maintenance charges of the army, he should make annual payments or cede some territory permanently to the company. Okay, so first the ruler has to accept the British forces. Okay, then to maintain the that British forces in his capital, the Indian ruler, he has to give some annual payment to the British, or he may give some territory permanently to the British. Okay, then the next one is all the non-English European officials should be turned out of his state. That is, already we have know that during the period of the British, the French, the Dutch, the Danish, they came to India for the trade purposes. Okay, so the British, they told that Indian ruler to, that is the non-English European, though except the British, other European officials should be sent out of their state. Okay, next one, the native ruler should deal with foreign states only through the English company. That is, after getting permission from the British only, the native Indian ruler should contact with the other foreign states. Okay, the next rule is the British would undertake to defend the state from the internal trouble as well as external attack. Okay, so the British, they has to safeguard the particular state from the internal trouble as well as the external attack. So these are the main features of the subsidiary alliance. That is, first the Indian ruler, he has to abolish his own army and accept the British forces. Then a British resident would stay in his capital. Then third one is for the maintenance charges, the Indian ruler has to make an annual payment to the British, or he has to give some territory permanently to the company. Then the fourth one is, except British, all non-European officials should be sent out of the state. Then the native ruler should deal with the foreign states only after getting permission from the English company. Then the British would undertake to defend the state from internal trouble as well as the external attack. So these are the main features of the subsidiary alliance. Next one, In this subsidiary alliance, there are some merits and demerits are there. First, we can see about the merits. Okay, so here merits for the British. What is meant by merits? Merits means advantages. Okay, so by this subsidiary alliance policy, what are the advantages, benefits are there for the British? That is, the British company maintained a large army at the expense of the Indian ruler. So by this policy, the British company can maintain a large army by using the amount which was given by the Indian ruler. Okay. The next benefit is all Frenchmen in the service of native rulers were dismissed and the danger of French revival was completely eliminated. Then third one, the British company began to control the foreign policy of the princely states. That is, the Indian ruler has to get prior permission before dealing with the foreign states. Okay. Then Wellesley's diplomacy made the British paramount power in India. So by this policy of subsidiary alliance, the British became a supreme power in India. Then he transformed the British Empire in India into the British Empire of India. Okay, he transformed the British Empire in India into the British Empire of India. Okay. Next one, defects of the princely states. That is, what are the disadvantages of the subsidiary alliance to the princely states. Okay. So the subsidiary alliances made the Indian rulers weak, oppressive and irresponsible. So the subsidiary alliance, it makes the Indian rulers weak, oppressive and irresponsible. Okay. The British arms, they neglected their duty towards their subjects and even exploited them. So protected by the British arms, the Indian rulers, they neglected their duty towards their subjects and even they exploited. Okay. So the first Indian state to accept the subsidiary alliance was Hyderabad in 1798. Okay. So which is the first Indian state to accept the policy of subsidiary alliance? That is Hyderabad. Okay. So then after that it was followed by Tanjore in 1799, Awadh in 1801, Peshwa in 1802, Bonsal in 1803, Gwalior in 1804, Indore in 1817, Jaipur, Udaipur and Jodhpur in 1818. Okay. So this is about the policy of subsidiary alliance. So next one, policy of doctrine of lapse. So the subsidiary alliance, this policy was introduced by Lord Wellesley and the doctrine of lapse was introduced by Lord Dalhousie. Lord Dalhousie was one of the chief architect of the British Empire in India. He was an imperialist. He adopted a new policy known as doctrine of lapse to extend the British Empire in India. So Lord Dalhousie, he was one of the chief British architect in the British Empire in India. He wanted to expand his British territory through his policy known as doctrine of lapse. He made use of this precedent and declared in 1848 that if the native rulers adopted children without the prior permission of the company, only the personal properties of the rulers would go to the adopted sons and the kingdom would go to the British paramount power. So what's the feature of this doctrine of policy of doctrine of lapse? If the native rulers adopt, that is native ruler, those who have not male son. Okay. So if the native rulers adopted children without the prior permission of the company, in that cases only the personal property of the rulers would be given to the adopted sons, but the kingdom would go to the British, under the control of the British. Okay. So this principle was called the doctrine of lapse. It was bitterly opposed by the Indians and it was one of the root cause of the Great Revolt of 1857. Okay. So this system of doctrine of lapse was hardly opposed by the Indians and this is the main reason for the Great Revolt which took place in the year 1857. Okay. So by applying this policy, that is doctrine of lapse, Lord Dalhousie annexed the states of Satara in 1848, Jaipur and Sambalpur in 1849, Baghdad in 1850, Udaipur in 1852, Jhansi in 1853 and Nagpur in 1854. Okay. So what are the factors for the success of British in India? So there are some factors are there. Okay, that is the great naval power. The British, they had a strong naval power. Then the development of textile. Then scientific division of labor. Then economic prosperity and skillful diplomacy of the British. What is meant by economic prosperity? Here economic prosperity means economic development, and there skillful diplomacy of the British. Okay. Then feelings of insecurity among the Indian merchants. The Indian merchants, they had a feeling of insecurity. Then the inequality and ignorance of Indian kings. So these are the main factors which led to the success of the British. What are the main factors? That is the great naval power, development of textile, scientific division of labor, economic prosperity and skillful diplomacy of the British, feelings of insecurity among the Indian merchants, then the inequality and ignorance of the Indian kings. So these are the factors which is helpful for the success of the British. Okay. Next, the conclusion of this lesson. So what's the conclusion of this chapter? That is, the Battle of Plassey was the foundation of the British dominion in India. So the Battle of Plassey, it is the foundation for the British domination in India. The company's administration was not for the interest of people. It was imperialistic, expansionistic and exploitative. So that is the main motive of the company's administration is to expand their British control in India and to exploit the wealth of India. Okay. Then it brought more Indian territories under the British domain through the policy of subsidiary alliance and doctrine of lapse. So this policy led to the South Indian Rebellion in 1800 to 01, then Vellore Rebellion in 1806 and Great Rebellion. So this the policy which was followed by the British generals, that is the subsidiary alliance and doctrine of lapse. It led to the many South Indian rebellions, that led to the South Indian Rebellion which was took place in 1800, Vellore Rebellion, and also the Great Rebellion which took place in the year 1857. Okay. Have you all understood, students? Okay. So in this lesson we have learned about how the East India Company, they came to India for the purpose of trade and how they captured the political power in India. Okay. Yes. So then you can see the recap. You can read and see once. Okay. Then your today's assignment is you have to read the lesson once. Okay. You have to read the lesson completely and you have to do an map activity. Okay. So you can see here in page number 148. Mark the following on the river map of India. Okay. So you see there are 5 places are there. You have to get an India river map and you have to mark these places and write an test. Okay. So that is Plassey, Buxar, Purandar, Arcot and Vandivash. Okay. So you can see these places in the page number, in the second page of this lesson. Okay. So in this lesson second page you can see these places and you mark once. Then after that you make it thorough and write an test, map test. Okay. So this is your assignment today. We can see you in next video. Okay. Thank you, students.